How's everybody doing today? This is Staff Sergeant Newberry, and I am shooting from the hip on this. This is the first video, and if this works out successfully, there's going to be an uploaded test to our Google Classwork. It's like a classroom, essentially. Um, it's going to be uploaded all there, and then once everybody watches the video, they can do kind of like a testing material, and I will grade them and we'll track them this way, and then this will all go into the driver's packets. And moving forward, this might actually be the best way to do this, um, and hopefully everybody gets their knowledge out of this. So let's begin. I'm going to go fairly quickly through some of this. I don't want it to be a really long video. This is also Preventative Maintenance Checks and Services, which is the PMCS that you're supposed to do before you enter a vehicle and turn it on. Before you enter a vehicle and turn it on, this is where you start. As in, would you start up a vehicle not knowing to check the oil level? So this is where we begin. Um, the beginning of most courses is going to tell you if there's a fire, don't stay in your house or wherever you're watching this. Don't go out in the street because that's kind of dangerous too. Get away from the fire. If you got to go to the bathroom, pause the video. Don't ask me. Don't talk to your computer because I'm probably not sitting there. So the course outline is the 5988 Echo, also known as a 2404, which is the manual version. And the 5988 is basically a breakdown of faults in equipment or issues with the vehicle. It's very, very, very imperative. It's very crucial that you get this information correct. And if there's something wrong, to write it down. And if you don't know, ask. We've been having a lot of issues lately where people are not writing things down, and then we go to use the equipment and we find out that it's broken, and then somebody along the way is like, oh yeah, there was 3 1-gallon jugs of Quick Trip antifreeze in one of the LMTVs. Well, why is that? Oh, every once in a while it just starts, spraying antifreeze, your coolant, all over the place, and it's not annotated anywhere. So if we don't know high side pressure, is there something wrong? There's a pinhole. So when it heats up and when it gets to operating temperature, which we're going to talk more about because that's a very crucial thing for a lot of these vehicles that they don't get to see very often, that issues can arise when they come down. And then most everybody should know about the technical manual. Every vehicle has one. If your vehicle doesn't have one, we've been working with QR codes, and that might be another lesson plan or something down the road that we'll cover in a little bit. This is basically understanding what the PMCS tables and defining what is a safety deadline or an admin deadline. And that's also a G-Army reference for if a vehicle has an overdue service that's beyond the date that it's tolerant. And then shortcoming faults and non-mission capables, and basically the different kind of fault icons that we will be allowed to use, because I've seen all sorts of crazy stuff, like circle X's when the commander hasn't signed off on anything. And then how to record faults with and without, and what we're looking at. So this is a 5988. This prints out of G-Army, and it's pretty straightforward. All of the upper information, all of this information in all of these boxes will most likely be already populated, except for number 4. This is where you're putting your information in. Unless you've input it into G-Army, then there should already be stuff there, but it will come up down here in 3 and look like this. This is historical stuff. So this is the bumper number or admin number, the serial number of the piece of equipment. The equipment number is a G-Army serial number. So the equipment number on these sheets, there is only one of them, and it goes to that piece of equipment. And there's one per. And then of course, you have the model, the nomenclature, the NSN, current reading on miles and hours, if there are any. Usually, if you're doing wheeled vehicles or anything with wheels that tracks mostly by miles, that is what you're going to input. You will only input hours on specific things like some engineering equipment, generators, compressors, some forklifts, stuff like that. The service data in number 2 here is going to cover your biennials. Everything right now is going to biennial according to USARC. So that is what will show up here, and it will show up when the services are coming available or coming due. Down here is stuff that is, so basically let's start over from the top here. This is your notification. So in G-Army, for me as the motor sergeant, when I go and I look at this vehicle and I want to see what's wrong with it, I can go into notifications to see, okay, here is an X. This is a deadline. Well, why is it deadlined? It says that it was deadlined for an inoperable door. On an 1151, those are not our typical soft side, so that would be an issue. If the door doesn't close, then it's going to be an X. So they're going to say this is a deadline. Down here, it shows me that this is the NSN for that door, the date that it was requested, and when it's on order, and the issue date is theoretical if it's already been completed and whatnot. So each one of these lines is going to be a different thing. So this is just a fault. This says that the mirror mount is missing. But is that going to stop the vehicle from being operationally safe? You should have ground guides. So yeah, a mirror is kind of a critical thing, but in the same sense, it's not going to stop the mission. If the commander says drive on and you're not doing anything crazy, just watch your six, watch your corners, be careful, watch for your battles. This one says the gunner door seal is inop. I'm thinking that the 1151s have the turret system on top, and if this is inop and it won't latch, that could be something that's serious. I don't know if I would just put a diagonal slash for a fault. This is just, so this is a deadline. These are faults. The dash itself is just kind of like I use it as a reminder. Like if I'm ordering only parts on that piece of equipment and there's nothing really wrong with it, that's making it operationally unsafe, I'll just put a dash there to visualize for me, to let me know, hey, there's something here. But you can see like parts and stuff are on order, and etc. This is essentially what will print out if everything is good to go, and then this is the section that you fill out is number 4. And then this goes pretty much through exactly what we just talked about. So you don't need the decimal for the 4. I know that some of them say that it's like 4/10, but G-Army will only show what is here. They don't do decimals, so I don't really care if there is a decimal in there or not. You can just write 6893 and I will accept that. We already covered the service dates and data. So I will upload this slide deck also so that you guys will have something to look through and be able to reference back to this. That way the video is not going to be forever long and cover a bunch of redundant stuff. A lot of you guys should know the majority of this, but the paperwork is what I really want to harp on. because of what I received from last AT wasn't viable. I mean, I think 2 or 3 out of 50 sheets were usable. So when that happens, like your dispatches and stuff, the same way, that'll be a different exercise or a different class for dispatching and how to fill it out. But when it's filled out incorrectly, that hurts you. You lose your mileage. Like G-Army for this here, this stuff, you would lose your hours if you don't put your information in here and you don't let me know what's going on. You should be in constant communication with me or with the clerks or whoever is running your maintenance area, that when this stuff happens, like if you have a fault description and it said, and you put in there low oil right here, the corrective action, what do you think it would be? You probably should add oil to it. So then you go find somebody, hey, I need 1 quart of oil. Hey, I need this or that. What I would say is as an operator, while you're doing your PMCSs, when you come up on a fault, get a 91 Bravo, get a 91 Lima, get somebody that is mechanically sound that can double check and verify your fault. Because a lot of times you're going to find somebody where they're going to say, oh, well, my transmission's low on fluid. And then they're going to ask for fluid and they're going to fill it up. But what didn't they do? They just turned a vehicle on 10 minutes ago. Well, transmissions are not engines. Transmissions have to be warmed up to operational temperature. Operational meaning they need to be operated. So you would turn the vehicle on, you would let it warm up for 10 minutes, and then you would take it for a spin. You would run it through the gears. You'd let it cycle itself to get that fluid warm. And the reason is because you get into, your laws of thermodynamics and viscosities and temperature, what do they call it? It's basically fluid transfer of thermals. And they have done extensive testing on these transmissions and on these engines to say, hey, you cannot underfill this, but you cannot overfill it either. And the reason is because when you put more fluid in, then you're changing how the disbursement of the thermal, of your heat from this piece of equipment travels through the parts and the components. And there is a set variable that they want. And when you are allowing it to travel through more, you're taking it out of spec. So stuff like that needs to be checked and verified. Yes, you trust people, hopefully at face value, but you trust but verify. You make sure that what they're saying is accurate. That way you're not doing damage to something and you're not wasting product. So with that being said, that's the part of the 5988. And then we go into the technical breakdown of the manual. So when you get out to your vehicle, the first thing you do is you grab your TM, you open it up to the the PMCS, the Preventative Maintenance Checks and Services portion, and you start going through it. The general chapters of your TMs are as follows: general information, operation instructions, operator troubleshooting if you're having issues or problems. In almost every single TM, chapter 4 is going to be PMCS. That should be fairly easy for everybody to check and see, to check and find. It's a gigantic, thick book. It's like 500 pages. And it should be in every vehicle. It's a part of the BII. So so chapter 1 goes through general information. It goes through your abbreviations. It goes through your acronyms. This teaches you essentially the default on how to read and how to look at the TM. It's going to give you vehicle specs on weights, gross weights. It's going to give you information on lifting points. So chapter 1 says it goes through and it covers description of all equipment models. So in one TM, if there are several TMs that are alike, if there are vehicles that share the same sort of components, you're going to have several TMs that cover multiple pieces of equipment. So, say for instance, 2320 387-10. That is a Humvee manual, but on the front cover, if we go back here, you're going to notice that it covers the 1151s, but there's older models, so the 1113s, 1114s, 51s. This here is an 1151 at A1. The A1 is just something additional. It's a newer model than the 1151. And then it goes through 1152s. 1152 looks like a Ford Ranger. It's got the little truck bed where it's a two-door, so it's cropped here, and it comes back and it's a truck bed. 1152 A1s. The 1165 looks like this, but it's a four-door up armor Humvee. And then it goes through 11s. So essentially, all to say that this 387-10 covers all of these vehicles, but you need to understand that this EIC, this Equipment Identifier Code, Bravo Fox 9, only is for this. The BEJ is only for the 1165A1. And that's kind of crucial because you'll see a lot of forms that come out for PMCS, and the first page of that TM is going to have this, and it's going to have an EIC number attached to it. And then as you're going through the steps, you're looking specifically for this EIC number in order to determine, does this component go with this piece of equipment? Does this BII go with this piece? You might find something crazy on that BII, but if it doesn't have B6 Charlie, it doesn't go to the 1114. So these EICs, and this is also for each vehicle type. So this B6 Charlie only goes to this. Fluids, it's going to cover the standard amount that goes into each of them. And this goes back to if you put in, if you crank the engine and it gets hot and you pull the dipstick's gonna be high. The oil's gonna be high because the engine is hot and running. When you check the oil, the engine should be off. That way you know that there's enough oil in there to operate safely. I don't know how many times I've seen this where they're like, oh my gosh, we gotta drain some oil out. And you're like, how much? They're like, oh, I don't know, like a quart. I'm like, how did you overfill it by a quart? And they're like, I don't know. Like, well, is that warm? Yeah. Well, then it probably needs to cool down before you need to recheck it. That way you're not lowering it and then you check it and it's at 6 quarts, not 7. It's going to cover maximum operating speeds. This is a pretty big and crucial thing in the Army because it covers a lot of your convoy issues and stuff like that. With, a convoy rolls out at the slowest vehicle's pace. That way everybody's distancing and everything all follows together. But that's also it's also crucial for towing and transfer cases that can't keep up. There's speeds that if you are hauling something that's really heavy and you're going way over it, you're going to heat something up. You can crack it, blow it, drop it, destroy it, catch it on fire, hurt you, hurt somebody else. There's a lot of little things to be knowledgeable of in this field while you're going through these. It's going to tell you how to winch it, and it should actually give you instructions on how to tow it, like with a tow bar, or pull, like haul it with a wrecker, stuff like that. And then tire pressure information. Make sure your tires are properly inflated. Make sure you're using the correct tires. Otherwise, if you're using low rate tires, if you're using like load range deltas with 24 studs or with 12 studs on like a contact truck, chances are you're way over your weight limit and you're going to blow one of those tires out when you hit a corner. So, just the little things, right? This goes through, so chapter 1 basically covers a little bit of everything. It goes through all the descriptions. So it's going to go through your fuel pump system and show you where that's at. It's going to, your drivetrain, your transmission, all of this stuff. It's going to go through where your fuel injectors, your injector pumps. It's all labeled out. The TM should cover everything. Any questions that you have at the 10 level. If it's beyond you or beyond that, then it's not going to be in your hands, and that's something that we'll take care of. Chapter 2. This is something that everybody should know. This is your operation instructions. This is common sense stuff. You don't just jump into a vehicle and assume that everything is going to be the same, especially if you've driven trucks to cars to box trucks to go-karts. Like the handling and the stopping distances and everything are going to be different. This is stuff that's crucial for you to know. First one goes through the rotary switch. It's in off right now. You're going to flip it up, and then your wait to start lamp is going to be hot orange, and it's going to say wait. And when it goes off, that means your glow plugs are at operational temperature to assist in the combustion of your engine, and then you push it over and hold it on the run position, which is right here, and then it's going to start the vehicle. Your brake warning lamp is going to be on if the brake is applied, which is right here. So, all of this is fairly simple. I'm not going to go through everything because you guys are smart enough to read. You're going to be able to decipher, plus it's in the TM. It's in every TM. Chapter 3 covers troubleshooting. So when you come to an issue, this is between the operator and the TC and the passengers, but somebody clearly wanted to point out the running joke is that's operator level. That's 10 level. If something's going on and you can't start the vehicle, what's happening? I can't even make this up. I had a lieutenant do this to me and an E7 do this to me at the same time during one annual training. And it's the vehicle is off, but they pulled the parking brake, but didn't put the transmission into park. And then they tried to restart the vehicle and it wouldn't start. And they're like, it's dead, I need it jumped. And I'm like, let's take a peek and see what we can see. So then you go in, you find that the transmission is still in drive, but the vehicle is not on. The first thing you do is put it into park and turn it over. If it turns over, you're golden, keep going. So it's a common thing that it's, yes, when we say it's operator level, certain things are not. It is kind of a running joke, but in other instances, it could be something really simple that you guys just need to check. If we're doing stuff, it's something that you can cover. It's something you should be able to look into and cover in your own vehicles. So then you get into the PMCS, and it starts at before, and this is instructions. It literally says number 1. This is also really crucial. So I'm going to scroll up here real quick. Here, check this out. So, they don't have any more. It says item number 1. If you're on item number 16 and you find an issue, item number, you don't just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you're on item 16 in the TM, you write 16 in this box, because then when I say, okay, I open up the TM to 16 item number, I know exactly where you were at in the TM when you found this issue. Then you put in your slash or your X or whatever, the date that you found it, and your description. And if you could fix it, this is the corrective action you took. And if that's the case and it worked, then you initial, and then right here you write no faults found and a date, or a date and your last name. If you want to put in a time limit or a time frame, how long it took you, you can get man hours accounted for against this piece of equipment. So we'll zoom back down here to 4. So all of these are going to start with number 1. The number 1 is before. It's before you ever turn the vehicle on. You are getting ready to roll out the door. You got your sheet, you got your binder. Typically, you should do the PMCS before you get a dispatch. That way you complete the PMCS and you bring it back and you tell me, hey, Sarge, this is all green. We're good to go. And I say, okay, sweet. And then I cut you a dispatch and you roll tide. And then you track your vehicle while you're driving it. And then while you're driving it, it's going to say interval. It's going to say during right here. That is during your operational usage. And then at the end, once you're done, you go back and you do an after PMCS. You double check, hey, I heard some weird clunking in the back, and that is totally fine. If you annotate on your equipment, yo, I heard some sort of rattling in the ass end of this vehicle, you know, underneath, driver's side, kind of be specific. Was it something that you hit? Was it something that you bumped? What did you hit a pothole and all of a sudden it started making this noise? That's going to indicate to me kind of, okay, well, maybe the hub, something dropped loose, you know, maybe the bearings are bad, maybe the hub needs to be fixed, maybe the gears need to be changed or re-oiled, something's not right. It'll give me an idea so that we can look into it with our mechanics. If you don't say anything and then we start using the vehicle and antifreeze is all over the ground, I'm going to go back and look at the PMCS. And if the PMCS says everything is FMC, good to go, operational start to finish, and it's not that way, I'm going to come question you. Like, how did you operate it for XYZ amount of time and it never did this, but now we're trying to use it. It's only been 5-10 minutes, and you know, and then be accurate with your assessments. If you are leaking antifreeze and you tell me it's a little bit, it's kind of dripping, I would say it's a class 3. And then somebody comes up and they're like, holy crap, dude, did you see that LMTV out there with that antifreeze, that river of antifreeze, and it's pissing it out? And I'm going to be like, wait a minute. You just told me that it was just a little bit and it's leaking and whatever. This guy shows up out of the blue and he's like, holy cow, there is a river of antifreeze. Because then it goes into environmental, it's a hazmat problem at that point. So there's many things to look at when you're doing your PMCS. And there's an overview in your mind that you should be tracking all of, you know, the little ins and outs of your vehicle. If there's something wrong, if something's not to your liking, if you need your mirrors adjusted, let us know. We've got tools, we've got toolboxes, we've got some parts. We can try and figure some of this stuff out. Your basic operator's maintenance instructions. The TM covers everything that you guys should be able to manage and track. To get the job done, down to the troubleshooting. Hey, the AC is not working, and you can flip through it and see if it's something that's out of your scope or you're not comfortable. Grab a mechanic, grab somebody, annotate it in your paperwork for sure. That way, if nobody's available, at least it's written down and we know that there's something going on, and then we can put it on work order and get it squared. The end of this coming up is chapter 5, and this covers your references for anything in the vehicle, components, and COEI is end item stuff. So um, like tires or chassis. You'd be surprised at some of the stuff that shows up on the COEI, like a vehicle wouldn't have it. And then your BII is a basic issue. That's your Pioneer kit that snaps under the back of the 1097 Humvees, the soft side Humvees. That's the red container that has your warning triangles in it. That's your fire extinguisher. From this here, these look like Bradleys. So they've got, here's the Pioneer kit layout, and they're all the same. That way somebody can look at all the areas and say, okay, well, there's a shovel, there's a sledge, there's a pickmatic, it's probably got the head somewhere up here, and so on and so forth. There's a toolbox, all the tools, the shackles, everything's laid out correctly, but the BII list should be 100%. Like on your LHSs or your PLS or your 983 LETs, they have an air chuck with an air hose attachment on the side of it. So if you have low tires or something, you could fill them up. That should be in your BII. Lug nut wrenches, etc. And then your AAL is not usually, it's going to be special circumstances in certain times or certain usages. Your AAL is going to be additional stuff that can be purchased against this piece of equipment and then kept with it. I don't know, it might be like a tow bar, it might be additional ratchet straps or chain straps. It might be like the multi-use adapter for a wrecker, the MUA, stuff like that. And then there's a durable expendable list for like nuts and bolts that usually strip when you take them out, crown nuts, lubrication, stuff like that. Your stowage and sign guide, I'm not 100%, that might be the green binder that goes in there. And then it'll have vehicle load plans, and then your lube orders. Oh, stowage, this is still the TM, duh. This is just covers how it can be stored. There's also stuff in the regulations like 750-1 that covers low usage, and so on. And then your lube orders for all your lube points. And then, okay, so it actually does go through some of this. Your UOCs, your usable on codes, are going to be kind of like your EICs. So when you're looking through here, like right here, so this piece, so remember when we go back and we said that the TMs might have multiple vehicles in it. So this one here has 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and each one of these, this XAA only goes to the 113 or the 1113. But when I'm looking at this part, I say, well, it's not on the 1113, and I go to the usable on code, X-ray Bravo Bravo, I can say, oh, well, it's only on the 1114s. It won't be on any other model except the 1114. Versus this, when it doesn't have one, it's for all of them. Sometimes it will have nothing in it, and that's for everything. Sometimes it'll have all of them listed. I think it depends. Like, here you go. So like, it depends on what is there. So like, this is for everything. This is for everything. This is only for the 1113 and 2 other models that aren't listed here, like a 1165 or something. And then it goes through your durables and expendable list. It'll tell you rubber silicone, antifreeze. This is crucial to pay attention to. This is a kit, which means that there are multiple pieces to this order. This is a 55-gallon drum NSN. So this part right here is your NIN. If you order this in G-Army, you're going to get a 55-gallon drum versus you were like, oh, I wanted this for just a gallon. So pay attention. These get a little crazy. So if you're not paying attention, you're like, oh, I want 5 of this NSN, but you meant to put in this one. You're going to end up with 5 55-gallon drums, and somebody's going to come after you. This is also in the TM. This is here's your stowage. This is where everything goes inside the vehicle. If every vehicle is the same, just like when you're doing your layout on your persons, your IFAC is always going to be on your person in one spot for your unit, so that when you go and your buddy's down, you know where his IFAC is to use on him. When you're looking through a vehicle, the fire extinguisher is always going to be in the same spot in that specific model, so that you know where to find it when you need it. It's common sense. Everything is streamlined. Then this is like your data plates and where your other labels and stuff like that are. Your sign guide. Excuse me for messing that up a little bit earlier. Load plan. So this is still, the basic understanding of where everything goes in a vehicle. Where do I put my weapons? Well, there's a weapon and there's one, and there's another one right there. This kind of thing. And just everything has place. Everything should be in the same spot. We know where it's all at. Is this 100% of the time? Probably not. It should be, but we all know better. And then it goes through your lube orders. What oils to use for what vehicles, for what engine types, the 6.6 for the 7.6 versus the 9.5, and then your radiators, etc. Still lube orders. This is where you would lube point to, what kind of lube or gear oil you would use. Using the PMCS tables and defining what constitutes a safety deadline. Oh gosh. Shortcoming faults and non-mission capables. So yeah, these are crazy. So this goes through your PMCS tables. This chapter covers general cleaning instructions. So this is like using certain materials, not corrosions or others, soapy water, brushes, rags, general cleaning. I've never seen this done in person unless you're going through a wash rack, and it's usually just a giant spray nozzle and you're knocking stuff off and trying not to hit the windows because you'll blow them to pieces. Seeing that happen is crazy. Your fluid leaks. So this is fairly common knowledge, I believe, but a class 1 is just some sort of discoloration, some notice of wetness, not really anything formed, not really anything, there's no puddle, there's no drip. It's very minor. A class 2 is going to be something that there's going to be a little droplet forming. It's wherever it's coming from, it's getting excessively worse to the point where it's starting to form in one spot and it's causing a little stalactite of liquid. And then a class 3 is literally, it's enough that that drip has come down to the point where it's going to drop, and it does, and it starts creating a puddle. And class 3s are deadlines. Class 2s, it depends on what it is as to what I would say. Because obviously, like anything that's fuel is going to be a deadline right off the bat. It's something that once it gets hot, you're going to have a problem. So this says, what class leak is this? And then, because you can't really tell, they give you the hint, says drops are forming, but they're not on the ground. What do you think, class? Yeah, sorry. It's class 2. So you can see It's dripping, it's getting ready, but it's not all the way there. It hasn't dropped. That is clearly a class 3. It's all over the ground. This, depending on whether there's anything down underneath it, and this says the area is wet but no drops are forming, this would be a class 1. So there's clearly a leak, but there's no residual, there's no hazmat hitting the ground. So then this goes back, bounces back, I guess, and covers the PMCS tables, the before that we were talking about. It's before you turn the vehicle on, you start it up and go through it. Then during it, and this is while you're after you're finished with the before, and then while you're in use, and then this is when you're finished with use that you go back through and just make sure that everything is green and good to go. A safety deadline. So this is basically says that it wants you to look through AR 385-10, and that's the Army Safety Program. That is one of the regulations that we all need to know, and you should check if you have issues, because there's stuff in these regs that are usually not covered by anybody. And that goes for motorcycle use, that goes for troop transportation. Troop transportation is a big issue, especially last year when they had somebody going too fast and they rolled a vehicle, they killed a cadet, they injured like 14 other people. Like it's a big issue. So when you're looking through motor vehicle safety standards, this is highlighted and says improper functioning of steering, windshield wipers, horns, warnings, side or rear view mirrors, occupant restraints, and other safety devices. So if you find something that's going on, and it's like your seatbelt is stuck and it won't come out, that's a deadline. That's safety for you. That's safety for your passengers. So if something goes wrong with that, then you need to be able to annotate it in the paperwork. But then you get into, I don't want to jump ahead because I keep doing that because the slide, I can't see the slides. I'm just looking at the slide that you guys are. But the safety deadline could jump and merge into a Circle X, which is it's a deadline, but the commander has approved that we can continue and drive on mission. And that would be like, hey, my headlights aren't working, but it's daytime. So the commander Circle X is with the intent that once daytime is, once there's not enough visible light to be able to operate safely, the vehicle is dead. It doesn't go anywhere, it's not used. But in daytime, it's fine because there's sunlight, you can visually see, unless there's some sort of impairment that is causing you to not be able to, then it needs to stay that way. So everybody, you're going to hear this 1,000 times. Everybody's a safety officer. Safety is a #1 priority. You as the driver, you as the TC, you're responsible for each other and for your passengers. So if you see something that you think is going to be detrimental, you need to speak up. Yeah, somebody might outrank you and they might yell at you and they might, but whatever. But as long as you CYOA, as long as you cover your own butt, you did what you did. If it's something that's bad enough that you can outright refuse it, if somebody gives you a hassle, then it needs to be taken up the chain. But safety deadlines they're serious issues. You're going to see them in the PMCS. They're going to check, hey, are all the seatbelts operational? Do they all work? So this is some of the issues that they have, covering, fraying, tearing. These are all obviously not military vehicles, but it's still the same thought process. This is what constitutes a shortcoming fault. And I would say that this would be like it says right here, it's something that's not going to interfere with the operation, but it does need to be fixed. Like if like a door handle's broken off, but it still latches. You'll see that with the soft door Humvees, where somebody's improperly tugged and pulled and jerked or smashed or kicked it, and it just snaps the handle off. The hook latch is still there, but you've broken it, and now it needs to be fixed. So this is saying right here, it's going to be deadline if the damage prevents it from operation. But if it's something like the mirror's loose, like the bottom nut and washer is missing, so the mirror vibrates, that's going to be a shortcoming fault. It's going to be a slash, and that will basically say, hey, this needs to be fixed, but it's not going to stop the mission. Charlie Mike. So like they've got here missing splash guards or cuts in the canvas. It's not something that's going to stop you from rolling. NMC, this whole wheels are missing. The tires are missing, deflated or unserviceable. This is going to be a problem. Obviously, this is way out of reg and not operational, and we all know that. But you can see right here, there's forks, and this shadow is a forklift that they're lifting the butt end up and probably rolling it forward, I imagine. But this also goes back to like SOUMs where, you know, we had defective tires on Humvees because of weight ratios, and at certain weights with certain tires, they just exploded, just outright, and they killed people, and they made a big change, and it cost hundreds of millions. So, what constitutes a deadline fault? Clearly, if a wheel is missing, I mean, you know, hub is trashed, whatever. I think these are pretty much say the same thing, but this is something that will interfere with the mission or the operation of the vehicle. And then we go back. So we're going back to 5988, and we're going into recording. And this goes back to what I said earlier, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse too much, but you need to be descriptive. You need to let us know. This shows here every day that it was operated. You know, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, I don't know, 25, 26, whatever. Every day that it was operated, if there's a date here and an initial, typically, I mean, I guess you could initial, it won't really matter. But if you've initialed it, then you basically have said, hey, on this date, it was no faults found. It's good to go. This is basically saying that you're going to annotate in your 5988. So in item 13 in the TM, which is 13, they checked item 13, checked seat belts. What was wrong with it? It's broken. Item number 13, straight out of TM. E, they put in an E, that is it's a safety deadline, but it's not really, I don't know why they put an E. I don't think that's what it is. That might be the actual status code in G-Army. And then the date that they found it, and then what was wrong. If they had one on hand and they changed it out, then it would say pulled stock or pulled from stock, replaced, and then you could write in the seatbelt material number down here, quantity 1 used, and then you would initial, and then you would date underneath it. So I know it says signature, but I can't give you credit, and we can't figure out what's going on or who last drove it if you just scribble some crap on there. So we prefer you print your first name, your last name. If you know your G-Army ID number, that would be cool too. You can also find that on your dispatch. It'll be next to your name. It's usually a 6 or 7, 8-digit number, depending on when you joined. The shortcoming faults, so it says it's missing the splash guard. Shortcoming is just a slash. It's not something that's going to stop anything. They noticed it on a walk around because they visually inspected it. So that's item number 1 in the TM. So they wrote one down, slash, the day that they found it, what was missing. If they happen to have a splash guard, which is just a rubbery piece of whatever, it's like a pad of rubber with bolts in the bottom. It goes right here to stop splashing up into the engine bay, make everything dirty. Then you had one, you put it on, you initial, etc. Same thing. Deadline, same thing. They found it in 6. Found it in 6. This was the problem. So they X'd it. X is a deadline. Hey, this is something that's going to affect the operation of this vehicle and the mission. Bam, bam, bam. If it was just a tire and there was a spare and they replaced it, just like I say, pulled the spare and replaced the problematic tire, need to order a new spare, something like that. And then you would initial, and then that would go to the clerks because that's something that we need to know. That way we can get in there and fix this piece of equipment, or we can order the parts necessary to do so. No faults found. If everything's good to go, they just say, write the date, put your initials. Don't just scribble your initials. I know a lot of you have issues with handwriting. That's why I went with the QR method, because now you can use your thumbs and you can type it in to like a fillable PDF real quick, and then you can screenshot it and then email it to me, or you can text it to me. Makes it way easier to manage versus me trying to figure out who the heck is. It just doesn't work like that. Record safety deadline front page. I don't know why they don't want you to fill out the front page. So in summary, I know this is a bit long. I apologize. This was like a 50 slide something. So, and PMCS kind of covers a lot. I could condense it to just show you, hey, this is the TM, this is the 5988, but this covers everything. It's a very well-rounded piece that you need to know. And then I will pull stuff out of this for the test. So you have learned how to properly PMCS, at least in theory. You know that you're supposed to go through. If you come to me and you get a TM and you go to PMCS your vehicle and you come back in 10 minutes and you say, yep, I'm good to go, I know you're full of crap. I know you are, because the TM starts at number 1 and it just goes and it goes, and there's a bunch of stuff to check. It should take you probably 30 minutes reasonably, unless you're, unless you've done this 1,000 times and you know what you're doing. Typically, if you come back that quick, I'm gonna say something. That doesn't mean dilly-dally. That means check your vehicle. Like, if you don't check that there's something wrong with the lug nuts on the driver's side tire on the front, and then we get out in the convoy and that lug nut flies off and it takes out the person behind you, and then your wheel comes off and you flip and roll your vehicle, and then I've got to go tell your mom and dad, hey, I'm sorry, Private Snuffy didn't make it. He clearly jacked up his PMCS because we found the paperwork. No, not like that, but you know what I mean? Like, this is serious stuff. You don't want to put the people in your vehicle in jeopardy. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to have, somebody in uniform walk up to your front door with a flag and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Snuffy, I'm sorry to say this, but there's been a training accident. Like, nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to imagine that. Nobody in anybody's right mind wants that to happen. And taking care of your PMCS is the best way to go about making sure that you keep yourself and your battle safe and the vehicle. If there's something wrong with it, I need to know. That way we can take care of it. So this says you're constantly informing, you're constantly in communication with maintenance. You're letting me, and you're letting the clerks, and you're letting the other maintenance guys know, that way they can relate up to me. If I'm not around, Sergeant Goodwin is going to be the next best bet. If he's extremely knowledgeable, he knows what's going on. If that doesn't work, then you go to Sergeant Canseco, you go to Specialist Pena, you go to Sergeant Weiss, you go to Sergeant Bennett, you work your way until you find somebody that's either going to be able to help you, or you're going to annotate it in your paperwork and you're going to slide it under the motor sergeant's door if I'm not here, whoever is going to be available, and they're going to take care of it. But we have to know. If we don't know, I don't know what I have not been told. I don't know what I don't know. So I show up on ground, there's 20-something pieces of equipment, and I get told, hey, half of these don't work. Okay, well, I go into the system and everything looks fine. So nothing's been annotated and we don't know. So this is vital to be able to communicate that there's some sort of issue, even if you don't know what the issue is. If you are sure that there's something wrong, but you don't know what, and you're afraid that you might hurt something or somebody, speak up. Speak up. You would rather speak up and say something and feel a little bit dumb or sheepish. If you don't know, you don't know. And I'm never going to fault anybody for not knowing. But if it's something that might be critical or might be detrimental to somebody's health, you have to say something. It is your responsibility, your duty, your integrity, your honor, your honesty. Like every bit of the Army values to speak up and say something in case there is something that goes wrong. Then there is no fault to you. You have done your best. We have tried to take care of the issue as best as possible to keep our people safe, our family safe, our tribe, our clan, our gang, whatever you want to call us. I would rather see everybody walk home at the end of the day and have a deadline vehicle. It is what it is. It's going to happen. This equipment's super old. I mean, we're working with old stuff that's not going to get updated anytime soon because we're in the reserve. We're not frontline. We're not go-getters. We're hand-me-downs. So this is imperative that you take care and properly PMCS your equipment. So if there's any questions, I'm not really sure how the classroom works, but I know that there's going to be some kind of discussion board stuff up there. If there are any issues with it, if something's not right, if something doesn't work, let me know and I will take care of it. Or I will try and figure it out as best as possible. Yeah, so hopefully this video turns out well and we get a decent response back. Again, this is Staff Sergeant Newberry. If there are any issues, questions, concerns, let me know. Otherwise, have a fantastic day and we will talk to you all later. Out.